It is 8 p.m., and here are tonight's top stories. Abortion rights are on the line at the nation's highest court.
What they are doing is a gross invasion of our rights. We must stop it.
I'm very optimistic. This creates a lot of excitement in the pro-life community, no doubt about it.
Emotions running high as the Supreme Court prepares to strike down Roe v. Wade.
If this decision holds, it's really quite a radical decision.
Tonight we look at the impact in Colorado and the domino effect that could ensue.
Look at the other pages that take a wrecking ball to the right to privacy.
Plus, the leaked document undermining the judicial system.
We are in uncharted territory. This is not a normal thing to happen in the court.
The new investigation into the source behind the leak.
And this decision, coupled now with this leak, is a dagger to the court's legitimacy.
We begin tonight with the future of Roe v. Wade after the unprecedented leak of a Supreme Court draft opinion.
The ruling is still the law of the land, though its future is all but certain. Good evening, and thank you for watching Denver 7 News on Local 3. I'm Jacqueline Allen.
I'm Danny New. Tonight, we're going in depth, taking a 360 look at multiple perspectives of Roe v. Wade, like what's next if the law is repealed, and reaction to the leak itself.
And today, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts confirmed that draft opinion leaked last night by Politico is authentic. Chief Justice Roberts added that the draft, quote, does not represent a final decision by the court and is calling the leak an egregious breach of trust.
And almost immediately after that draft was leaked, protests began outside the Supreme Court building and have continued to grow. Here in Denver, hundreds of Coloradans gathered at the state capitol. A majority of the people attending the rallies were pro-choice, while a smaller group was anti-abortion. So now the question so many people on all sides of this debate are asking is, now what?
Many on Twitter tonight are asking if other decisions from the Supreme Court, like the one legalizing same-sex marriage across the country, could be overturned next.
Denver 7's Rob Harris spoke with experts in Colorado to find out and joins us live in the studio. How you doing, Rob?
Doing well, thank you, Danny. So yeah, one thing we want to stress from the top here is that this is not yet an official ruling from the Supreme Court, but the court has again confirmed that it is an authentic draft. So I talked to two experts, Jennifer Hendricks, a professor of law at the University of Colorado, and Joshua Wilson, a professor of political science at the University of Denver. And they both said that the exact legal reasoning in Roe v. Wade is used in other Supreme Court decisions, like the ones legalizing same-sex marriage and relationships, interracial marriage, and access to contraception.
The right to abortion is part of a modern edifice of constitutional rights that are usually sort of grouped under the general concept of the right to privacy. The foundation for all of those precedents will be yanked out if anything remotely like this draft becomes the opinion of the court.
Now, some on Twitter are correctly pointing out that Justice Alito in this decision says it's not meant to influence other issues. But Professor Wilson says even this language in the decision will not stop it from being cited by lawyers in future cases.
He tries to cordon off what he's arguing and to say this only applies to Roe and can't apply to other fundamental rights. That's not the way that law works. Future lawyers in future cases can use the same sorts of arguments that he's laying out here to go after other established fundamental rights.
So both of our experts agreed that other rights, like the right of same-sex couples to marry, are in jeopardy in a post-Roe America. Now, in Colorado specifically, voters passed a constitutional amendment in 2006 that defined marriage as between a man and a woman. But that amendment was struck down by a federal court in 2014, about a year before the Supreme Court ruled nationwide. So tonight at 10 o'clock on Denver 7, I'm asking our experts what that means for couples who are married in the state. But for now, reporting live in the studio, I'm Rob Harris.
Really good context. Thank you, Rob. Chief Justice John Roberts says the Supreme Court will investigate the release of that draft opinion that could strike down Roe v. Wade. Roberts called the leak published by Politico a singular and egregious breach of trust. He also said this betrayal of the confidence of the court was meant to undermine the integrity of their operations, but he vows it will not succeed. So how did a document this classified get leaked? Well, let's ask an expert. Danny, today you spoke with Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser.
Yeah, well, Attorney General Weiser clerked for both Chief Justice Byron White, Colorado's own, and Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So I asked him about just how many people have access to a Supreme Court opinion draft?
At the Supreme Court, the norm is, in addition to each justice, a single law clerk would work on the case, and you'd obviously have some staff member who might be administrative assistant. Now, they might be able to share with others. They might potentially bring it home, or they might show it to another law clerk. So it's any number of people who could have access to a document. But before this incident, I never heard of a document being leaked before.
And on that note, how does this unprecedented leak interfere with the process moving forward?
Well, Attorney General Weiser pretty much says that this is extremely damaging to the perception and the proceedings of the highest court in our country.
The Supreme Court as an institution is premised on the ideas of drafts going back and forth. And sometimes they're able to change people's votes. In this case, Chief Justice Roberts desperately wanted a change in the outcome. He didn't want there to be 5 votes to overrule Roe. This could have short-circuited that process potentially. Chief Justice Roberts is worried about the legitimacy of the court. And this decision, coupled now with this leak, is a dagger to the court's legitimacy.
And of course, we mentioned that he clerked with Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and we can only imagine how she would have reacted to a situation like this.
Yeah, we talked about that too. Attorney General Weiser spoke about how she would have challenged all of us at home who feel like bystanders to history.
Justice Ginsburg was a big believer in the role of the public in protecting our constitutional rights. What we have an obligation to do now is to be active citizens.
And Attorney General Weiser also reemphasized that in addition to having doubled down on protecting abortion rights this year, he will continue to fight to protect Coloradans' civil rights.
Colorado Representative and GOP Senate candidate Ron Hanks said on Twitter that the leaker should be found and, quote, tried and then convicted of an insurrection against our government. Coincidentally, Hanks was in Washington during the January 6th riot at our nation's capital, though there's no evidence he actually entered the building. Let's dig a little deeper into the law here in Colorado. With or without Roe v. Wade, Colorado allows abortions. That right was codified into law this legislative session, but that doesn't mean things can't change in the future.
Number 7 political reporter Megan Lopez looked into the policy details and the efforts being made for change from both sides.
It was short, the celebration by abortion access advocates, when Governor Jared Polis signed the Reproductive Health Equity Act into law. Short because one day shy of 1 month later, a leaked U.S. Supreme Court draft decision likely means the end to Roe versus Wade. But this moment and that decision is exactly what these advocates were bracing for.
It's why we as legislators here in Colorado took proactive steps in order to ensure and protect reproductive health care options in the state of Colorado.
But that was a statutory change, meaning lawmakers or voters could undo it with a simple majority vote.
Very much linked to kind of the political future of the state, of who's in control. So the more secure option is to move to a constitutional amendment.
Which is exactly what abortion access advocates are aiming for next. Cobalt is one of a few groups working on a ballot question to codify that access into the state's constitution. It would also change the state's funding laws.
In 1984, we passed an amendment that said no state funding can be used for abortions. So we really think that this is a negative issue and it needs to be fixed.
But that ballot question likely won't come until 2024. This year, anti-abortion groups are working on a measure of their own for voters. Initiative 56 would ban abortions at all stages of pregnancy except for a few rare circumstances like to save a mother's life. Supporters are now in the process of collecting signatures to officially get it on the November ballot. Juliana Day.
It was such a great way to assess what the feelings of the people in the state.
Ran an unsuccessful 2020 ballot question to ban late-term abortions. She knows the uphill battle ahead for this year's initiative. Still, she's hopeful.
This creates a lot of excitement in the pro-life community, no doubt about it.
She's not sure this ballot question will be successful, but says it's about educating people.
So little by little, we're changing the hearts and the minds of the people.
That ballot question and the Supreme Court decision also come during an important midterm election year.
There's an argument that this would mobilize both progressives and conservatives.
And there's calls for Congress to act, but again, it would depend on who's in control after the midterms. Megan Lopez, Denver 7.
Thank you, Megan. And Governor Polis joined 16 other governors today in sending a letter to Congress urging them to pass the Women's Health Protection Act. This is a bill that was introduced last year and got passed in the House, but is now stuck in the Senate. Democrats are not confident they have the votes to pass it, and some don't want to change the filibuster rules in order to even try.
We know abortion is protected for now in Colorado, but let's take a look at what other states would do if Roe v. Wade is overturned. So 13 states have so-called trigger laws. These are laws that would automatically start the process to make abortion illegal again if the high court allows it. In 4 of those states, abortion bans would immediately go into effect once Roe is overturned. 5 states have pre-Roe abortion bans that were invalidated with the original ruling. If the case is overturned, they could return, but it's unknown how they would be enforced. 11 states would ban abortion earlier than fetal viability. That's 22 weeks or earlier. If Roe v. Wade is gone, those states could restrict abortions to before 20, 16, or even 6 weeks. Now, altogether, abortion would likely be banned or heavily restricted in 27 states.
And all night on Denver 7, we are continuing our in-depth 360 coverage on what's at stake if Roe is overturned.
And you can also read the very latest right now on thedenverchannel.com. We are also going deeper on the free Denver 7 Plus app that is available to download right now on your streaming device.
Coming up on Denver 7 News at 8.
This project is really one beautiful example of what it looks like for community partners and organizations to come together.
New wheels coming to a Denver neighborhood whose residents could really use a more efficient way to get around.
Marbella, they should really have more. They should, deserve better.
Cloudy and not as cold tonight with showers moving in. I'll have your full forecast and more on the big warm-up on the way, still to come.
And school's out forever. One Denver social studies teacher retiring and reflecting on 4+ decades in the classroom.
The stories of history are the stories of our lives.